So for everyone who's been a part of RedX Cafe before, I'd like to welcome you back. And for all our new participants and attendees, I'd like to give a brief introduction to RedX Cafe. So Cafe was started in the spirit to bring together a community of tech enthusiasts and young professionals and students from the tech background, and with leading industry experts to impart knowledge in various domains such as artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, design thinking, and more, and to start a proper conversation on how you can make a difference in the world with your skills and knowledge on the ground level. Today, we are going to talk about applications of AI in various sectors. And for that, we have with us Mr. Devesh Rajadhyax. He is the CEO and founder at Cedar Labs. Mr. Devesh has a profound history in working in fields such as artificial intelligence, deep learning, machine learning in various sectors such as healthcare, retail, manufacturing, and more. To give a little more information on Labs, so Labs specializes in cognitive process automation, dark data analysis, predictive analysis, and we hope today Mr. Devesh will be kind enough to impart his expertise, knowledge in these fields with us. And so welcome, Mr. Devesh, firstly. And I'd like to give a little brief introduction of our co-panelists and all our RedX V School team members today. So today we have with us Dr. Subodh Devulekar. Dr. Subodh is our lead research engineer at RedX, and he's also an assistant professor at V School in research and business analytics. He has done his PhD in computational music. We also have with us Professor Shriram Balakrishna. Professor Shriram is our lab administrative head, and he has a very vast and rich experience in working in the healthcare sector. Then we have with us Mr. Amit Gavre. Mr. Amit is our senior software engineer at RedX V School. He also has a history in teaching engineering students, and he teaches many programming languages to MBA students in V School. We have with us Ms. Saloni Bedi. She's a product designer with us at RedX Lab. And Mr. Sushant Shetty, he specializes in electronics engineering at the RedX V School Lab. And Mr. Adish Deshpande, he is also a software engineer at the lab. And lastly, I'd like to introduce myself. So I'm Fatima Hirani, and I work as a communication designer at the RedX V School Lab. Over to Dr. Subodh. He may take over, please.
Thank you, Fatima, for the great start for this RedX Cafe, and welcome, Mr. Devesh, for accepting our invite and to be a part of this RedX Cafe, the first series that we are talking about AI for the social good. So when we spoke about, we'll start with something related with the AI and social good. You are the person who came in our list at the first, who is actually practicing the AI in most of the companies, and for a long time, before the boom of this particular topic, and with not only with the healthcare, but it is across the different sectors. So most of the students or the participants who are actually interested in knowing about what is exactly an AI is. So you can brief about the introduction to AI, some 2 or 3 sentences. But the most important question that people are asking is, do we have to be an expert to use AI for the social good? And if that's the case, then what are the skill set which are required for the same?
Thanks, Subodh. And hello, everyone. And thank you for joining. And I hope you all are healthy and safe. So So let me begin with the question that Subodh asked. Uh, what is AI? How can you define in simple terms what is this artificial intelligence all about? Uh, so to be very brief, AI is the pursuit of imitating human capabilities. Okay, uh, so here are machines who have the ambition, who want to imitate human capabilities. That's what AI is. But uh, this is not new. Machines have been trying to imitate the human capabilities for centuries now, right? And so AI is just the next step. It's just the next step in this journey of trying to imitate these capabilities. But this time it is the next orbit, the next step, that they are now trying to imitate the cognitive capabilities. So while machines have been doing the mechanical, taking over the mechanical work for a long time. So, for example, a car is actually a replacement of, we going from a place to place A to place B on foot. So that's a kind of a imitation. But now we are trying to imitate the driver. That's where the autonomous car ambition comes in, right? So now driving is a cognitive capability which requires perception, recognition, decision making, planning, and so on. So these are all the capabilities that now uh, AI systems are trying to achieve. So in order to do that, they have to basically master three aspects of human beings. The first one is perception, which is more of our senses. The second is the computation, which is what we have in our brain. And the third one is action, where we move or we change things in the outer world. But now this is again something that this is again not new. IT systems have this input process output thing for decades now. Okay, so what's new? The new thing is that uh, the uncertainty element. While so there is a very nice book by a scientist called Leslie Valiant, and the book is called Probably Approximately Correct, and in which he puts forward this concept of theoryful and theory-less problems. Okay, theoryful problems are those which can be defined well and can be solved by algorithmic methods, whereas theory-less problems are they have no definite way of solving. So, for example, how to succeed at a job interview, is a problem that is theory-less problem. So, while our systems have been trying to solve the theory-full problems earlier, now we are trying to solve the theory-less problems. And that's a very difficult thing. I mean, prediction is a theory-less problem, right? And as you know, prediction is notoriously difficult. And the reason why now the industry, the researchers are now able to attack these problems is because they have made a lot of progress in building learning systems as opposed to programmed systems earlier. Okay. And these learning systems, with the advent of availability of a lot of data and computing power, is making it possible to build systems that can cope with uncertainty, that is these uncertain problems. Okay, and when that started happening, the industry realized that this particular technology can have applications which are large in number, which can be transformative, and in fact sometimes frightening. So that's where all the hype and support for AI has come in, and the reason why we are having these discussions. Now, let me turn to the second aspect of Dr. Subodh's problem, which is a question, which is, you know that AI can be deployed for a lot of good things, okay, public good, for instance, and I really want to do that, but if I am not an expert in AI, like, if I don't know machine learning and regression and neural network stuff like that, can I still, harness the power of AI for the purpose that I want to? And the simple answer is yes. You can use AI to the purpose that you have in mind. You don't have to be an expert in AI, but you have to be an expert in problem solving with AI. Okay. So problem solving is an age old discipline, and you all practice that. Problem solving with AI is a kind of extension that have to be added to your capabilities in if you want to attempt these theory-less problems. So before we get into the different domains, etc., I would like to propose quickly, of course, because time is short. So a framework which you can at least use for thinking. Those of you who have this plan in mind to use AI, and this framework has got two acronyms, three-letter words. Okay, my colleagues always tell me that I use too many acronyms, and in fact, I sometimes give different acronyms for the same things. So, but taking the risk, I would put forward two acronyms. One is called DAT, DAT, and another is DAM, DAM. Okay, so DAT is basically data, applications, technology, and DAM is design, automation, monitoring. Okay, so we'll come to this, but before you use all this for your thinking of solving problems using AI, the first thing to do is to choose the problem right. Okay, you will see that in any area, you take education, you take healthcare, public welfare, city, smart cities, urban development, any area, and you will see that there are so many problems that can be solved. But what is the problem that you want to choose will depend upon your goal. Okay, whom do you want to help? What do you think will have the maximum impact at the lowest cost and lowest side effects? So that's the first decision you need to make, choosing the problem. Having done that, then the DAT framework can be employed. Okay, so the first is D, that is data. As you are aware, artificial intelligence systems are learning systems. Okay, they are not programmed, and that's where their power stems from. So they need a lot of data, which is in fact experience to to learn. Okay? So like when COVID started, there were so many applications which were made to detect social distancing and mask wearing. Okay? So but in order to do that, you will have to train your system with a lot of data of people wearing masks. Okay, so you will need the data first. Okay, so see that you have enough data on whatever, if you are working in an organization or NGO or an academics, then see what is the data that you either have or you can have access to or you can collect. That's the first element. Data is a complex subject. There's structured, unstructured data. There are so many ways in which it can be collected, curated, enhanced, and so on. Let me not get into that, but that's the data part. The second part is application. Okay, now AI can be put to a lot of different classes of applications. Okay, but for the sake of simplicity, because it's a thinking framework, I classify them into three: design, action, and monitoring. Okay. So design are those kind of use cases, those kind of applications where you are thinking. Okay, so you are so for example, decision making, uh, analytics, simulation, prediction, diagnostics. These are all examples of design class. Okay, this is typically something that you need to do at the beginning of problem solving. Then the action. Okay, this is where things actually happen. So automation, for example, is a classic example of action use case where you will, for example, chatbot. A chatbot is where the natural language questions are understood and replied, is an example of an action use case. And then you have the monitoring use cases, okay, where things are happening which may not have been impacted by AI. The things may be happening. For example, people are walking on the road. Nothing to do with AI, but you want to monitor them. Are they wearing masks? Are they too close? This is an example of monitoring. You have a patient in during the COVID times. Patients have been alone because people are not allowed to, so monitoring these patients has become a big use case. So these are all monitoring use cases. So when you think of your your problem domain, define the problem, use think about what data you have, what's the application that you want to build, and finally comes technology, data application technology. Having decided the data and application, more or less you have already decided what technology you are going to use. Now here again, you don't have to be an expert. A lot of things are available open source or free or at a very small cost, especially for the social use cases created by people like Microsoft and Google and Amazon. You can use those. Okay, and you might need services of a data scientist or somebody who understands some technology, but you can always have access to that on a temporary and a freelancing basis. But otherwise, all the pieces of this puzzle you should be able to put together by yourself. So
Great. Thank you so much for the detailed explanation. So you correctly said one particular point. We need to identify the problem. Now, when we try to identify the problem, so we generally look for what are the different applications which are happening in that particular domain. So we have most of our students from a different background, right? So we have healthcare background or the retail or the rural, right? So what are the different applications which are actually based on AI are actually impacting these particular sectors? Do you know any of this? Maybe public welfare or the healthcare or retail or the rural part.
sure, let's look at some of these areas like public welfare, healthcare, education, rural. So let's take, for example, healthcare, which I think many of the students will be interested in. So again, try and apply our application areas: design, automation, and monitoring. So what will these areas signify for healthcare? So if you see design, the biggest thing that comes to mind is, of course, the drug discovery. Okay, research area, where this is the holy grail. I mean, you are aware that how expensive and time consuming drug discoveries have become. We are experiencing that throughout the vaccine endeavor that our world is going through. But even otherwise, to come up with new drugs is very expensive, cost upwards of $2 billion, and on an average takes about 8 to 10 years through all the process. So how AI can help in drug discovery? It is already happening. So many companies are adopting AI for research. There are things like repurposing of drugs, where, or using the genetic analysis, where AI and big data are being employed big time. So these are the applications in drug discovery which falls into the design, because here we are thinking, analyzing, and researching. When you think of automation, the biggest thing that comes to mind is diagnosis and treatment, right? In case of healthcare, what is the process? The process is diagnosis and treatment. And so can we bring some automation there? Already so many things are happening. I mean, everybody must be reading the news where so many companies came up to say that they can now diagnose the new coronavirus, COVID, from a CT scan. within a few seconds. Okay, that's an example of automation. It's an automation of diagnosis. Okay, I don't want to get into the medical validity of this because that will take time to prove and all that. But I'm just giving an example, and this is happening in many other, the most famous case being the diabetic retinopathy, made famous by Google, where blindness can be predicted from pictures of retina. And then monitoring, of course, is probably the least glamorous, but the most important. So you have chronic diseases where everything needs to be monitored, right? From whether medicines are being taken regularly, the parameters, vitals, all these things need to be monitored. Where IoT, of course, plays a big part of actually sensing these things. AI plays the part of computing. So and making sure that detecting patterns and coming up with alarm signals. For example, ECGs can be monitored on a regular basis to detect arrhythmias, and those are the kind of things which go under the monitoring. Another interesting point, use case which came up, it's a real thing, happened in, is being used in South Korea, that there is a system called, I think, Blue Dot, if I remember the name right, which goes through a lot of news items and predicts that an epidemic is on the corner, around the corner. Okay, and it actually predicted that there is an epidemic 15 days before WHO officially declared the COVID pandemic. So that's something that actually happened. You can have such interesting applications in monitoring. So suppose just give me the rain check so that otherwise I can keep on talking about the applications. So give me the idea of time. So I can restrict
So
myself.
we still have a time. Yeah, you
Okay.
can talk about
Great.
the other areas also.
Okay. So let's talk about public welfare, for example. Now, in public welfare, what actually happens? Public welfare is something that the government is doing for the public, right? Two kind of things happen. There are already happening initiatives, things which are already happening, for which money is already allocated in the budget, and those things need to be monitored. So the monitoring, because are the benefits actually reaching the right people? Are the benefits, are they reaching in the right proportion? Should something be changed in the mechanism of delivering these benefits? These are all things which can be sensed using a lot of data that comes out. Any government scheme results into enormous data. Everybody is supposed to fill forms and file returns and all this. So those can be analyzed. It requires big data capabilities, ML algorithms and so on to do all this. But one can come up with insights into how these schemes are performing. But more interestingly, what about the new schemes government tries to introduce? This is where the design aspects, the strategic aspects come into play. So, our country has a budget of 27 lakh crores, and then there are all the budgets which the state governments are also allocating. A part of this, goes towards new schemes, new public welfare schemes. So, for example, a scheme to supply electricity, gas, and roads, and so on. But where should this money be allocated? What should be the new schemes that should be taken up? Is a subject which is obviously influenced by a lot of other factors, such as political factors and social factors. But modeling and AI can create evidence, and so you can take an evidence-based decision about where the money should be. This is not new. We have a lot of institutions which do this kind of research, and this is the area where AI can add a lot of learning capabilities. Then when you come to so things like rural or urban organizations, the development, then you think of things like traffic, which is for the last few months, of course, this has not been a problem. But if you remember, before that, traffic used to be probably a number one problem in many people's lives. So the how we can arrange that. Similarly, water and all these are resources, right? Traffic is basically the resources, roads are the resources, water, electricity. How we can optimize this is are those use cases where AI is playing and it's going to play a big role. If you take traffic, for example, a simple monitoring can help to avoid traffic jams. Because traffic jams are avoided not by doing something at the junction, but before that, right? So one needs to sense that the number of vehicles which are approaching a junction are is going up, and so you need to slow down the vehicles much before the junction and not at the junction. So these are very good application areas for technologies like AI combined with IoT, and they're being deployed. You are all aware of smart metering, and so the how we can optimize water distribution. Water is going to be the single biggest problem that world is going to face in the next few years. How power can be distributed to people, to everybody. These are all areas where work is happening. Uh, Especially if you take power, prediction is very important as the world shifts from the sources like hydrocarbon based or hydroelectric. So you know the gas or petroleum based energy generation or the hydro based energy generation. The world is shifting towards wind based or solar based energy generation, and those are unreliable sources. You don't know how much wind or how much energy is going to be there. At the same time, the demand is always also uncertain, and so this becomes a whole big uncertain theoryless problem to cope up with, how to optimize the whole energy system. So these can be some very interesting areas for the new entrants in the AI area to work.
Thank you so much. So, due to shortage of time, we'll take the last question, and then which
Sure.
is also I feel that's very important. So we spoke about the power of AI. AI will do this thing for us. It's a kind of magic for most of the businesses, right? So or the huge enterprises. But if as a small business, I want to also get into the AI and I want to invest into AI. So how the small business also get benefited from AI? Because I need to feel the power of AI. I want my business to grow with the AI or the machine learning, that the techniques which are there, or the emerging technologies basically. So how small business can go ahead with this?
It's a very good question, and actually I can answer this from some good personal experience. Businesses are using AI mainly in the decision making area. So you know one of the biggest decision making is where should we put our marketing dollars? Okay. Whom should we target? So these are so sales prediction, demand prediction. All these areas are very people are already doing a lot of social listening, for example. So these are the areas we can talk about it sometime again. But the main question here is not the areas, but how can the small businesses benefit from these? Okay. Now, I have given a lot of lectures and interacted with businesses, small businesses, and I have also interacted a lot with academic colleges like engineering and management colleges. And I feel that somewhere the answer is in the coming together of the two of these. While the small businesses have data and they have the problem statements, our institutions are training their students into these technologies very fast. I mean, I started lecturing AI in 2016 when I used to talk about what is AI and all that. Today, that lecture is no longer considered, good enough, because students have really come up, institutions have come up very well to introduce syllabus, to train. The faculties have, so many FDB programs I have seen happening, which the faculties have got a good grip. So I think that if somewhere a industry academics link can be more enhanced, and industries can give data as well as some kind of sponsorship, because that will pick up the interest, and so at a much lesser cost both will benefit. These may not be production systems, but in AI, production systems are anyway not very easy to suddenly, businesses have to go through the POCs first, get the test of how they are going to benefit, and then think of the production system. So I think this is the answer of how small businesses can benefit, as well as how the institutes can get advantage.
Super. Great, great. So, thank you so much for the time you have. I mean, like, it's a wonderful experience for all of us that we start. So we have Professor Sriram also on board, and then he's mentoring for Redx Lab, and then he also share his industry experience with all of us, and then his focus is also how the industry will be benefited from the technology. So, Professor Sriram, do you have any closing thoughts on this?
No, first of all, thank you so much, Devesh. It's always a pleasure to meet you virtually or otherwise.
Thanks.
And very extremely good insights that you give. And I'm sure we can keep talking till the cows come home. So this is almost like a beginning to a masterclass on AI. My question was only that, which we were discussing earlier on, is post-COVID, how will this new normal change for the students so that they are ready and they become a little bit more aware industrial people rather than just passing out as great, excellent students? That's my question.
Right. So, and again, this is a very interesting question, and we can really talk till the cows come home. But very quickly, what I have seen is that with the advent of AI, the new normal that you spoke about, all point in one direction, that the students have to become specialists even before they enter the industry. So you can probably not graduate now as a engineer or as a business management student. You have to graduate as some specialist, maybe a technology area like some programming or modeling or something, or a business area like finance, but not something like a broad area as finance, something in finance that you are really, really good at. So just as startups like ours, to survive, we have to find our niche, and we have to be very, very good at something small. The students have to also start being very, very good at something small while still in college. So I think that's the one thing that everybody has to take notice and act on it.
Thank you so much. That was a great response. Thanks.
Great. So, Fatima, over to you.
Thank you so much. I'm pretty sure it was very insightful for us and all the participants listening right now. I would like my colleague Saloni to take over from here for the vote of thanks.
Hi, hello there, sir. Thank you so much for joining us today. It was really great to hear all about different areas where AI could be implemented and how to go about the whole process of using AI application, applying AI in different areas too. And also to hear your experience in while working in this area. So thank you so much for joining us today. I also want to thank Professor Desalunke, Professor Sriram, who's here with us right now, and Rohit for giving us the platform of Redx to actually start this initiative of Redx platform, Redx Cafe. And also thank you to all the attendees for joining us today. We'll be sharing a feedback form with you guys on the chat box, on the live chat. So it will be great for us to hear about what else could we cover up and how this session was, so we can make this whole initiative better and more interactive and fun for everyone. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Devesh, again. And
Thanks
then
so much for inviting
definitely will
me
be
and